Welcome to Baddies for the People. I'm Rachel Pearl Jacobs.
And I'm Cheyenne Hunt.
And we're your resident bad bitches.
Let's get into it.
Welcome back, baddies.
It's time for What's the Tea with Me. That's how we always start out. Rachel, what's the tea with you this week?
The tea with me is I'm a star, and although I'm a new lawyer, I got to do my first direct exam in trial.
What does that mean for the non-lawyers listening?
That means I got to take a witness, and if you only watch Law and Order, that means I got to be the person asking, and then the other attorney was the one objecting. It's pretty exciting. Most people don't get to go to trial.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Before they're until they're 10-year lawyers. Some lawyers never go to trial.
Yeah, I was going to say, for those non-lawyers listening, being in trial is a big deal. You told me something else funny that I don't think you wanted to talk about, but you did give the jury a little show today.
Right, okay, so no, absolutely not. We cannot talk about that.
You don't want to talk about how you flashed your ass?
Well, I didn't flash my ass because I had on a dress skirt.
Yeah, which, I feel like most people our age are super into the skort moments, and that has made us a little less uptight about the way that we move in skirts and dresses.
Yeah, but why are you looking at my dress? That's how I feel. If you're gonna look at my butt, you're gonna look at my butt, regardless of if it's in a dress, a skirt, pants, whatever. But hopefully the jury gives us extra points. I mean, I don't know if they could even see it, but people would pay for that.
They would.
They do. So I'm embarrassed about it, though, for sure.
I don't think you should be.
Oh, it's only because, there were, older ladies in the gallery, which is, the people who are, watching court. And I feel like they were very scandalized. And I was raised really oppressively conservative in Southern Baptist. So, I just feel like I should be very covered.
Mm-hmm. And you were.
Yeah, but still.
They don't know that you were.
Yes, they didn't know that I was, which I guess shouldn't matter. But, I feel like I wear Skorts to do cartwheels in them, not because I think people are going to, accidentally, see up my skirt if I reach something.
I am the opposite because I just know that I won't sit like a lady for long. I'm a big man spreader.
Oh, I am too.
So I'm always an undershorts gal for that reason.
So Cheyenne, now that we have thoroughly drowned in my tea,
just start that over.
So Cheyenne, what's the tea with you this week?
This week, my tea is, I think, a pretty universal tea, which is TikTok was banned for a total of 12 hours. And that sent me through a whole range of emotions, especially someone who creates content on that platform. But it is a little funny because while TikTok has helped me build a good part of my career, it helped me launch my campaign for Congress, it helped me be able to do a lot of the media commentary that I do now. It also is something that takes up a ton of my time and energy that I really do think in a lot of ways life might be better without. And so,
does it generate money for you?
I am not eligible to earn money because so many of my videos are political, so they will demonetize them. Yeah.
Are they going to demonetize this podcast? Because it's political?
No.
Good.
They're not. I'm not going to let that happen. We're going to get that back.
Okay. I was just checking because I quit, if that's the case.
No. But I do feel like obviously there's grief involved because this platform has been such a huge part of my life. But there was also this sense of oh my God, I'm free.
Relief.
I've been liberated. I'm going to have so much time, hours a day back that I can pursue my interests and I can read and I can cook food.
It's giving abusive boyfriend.
I know. Me and TikTok are in a toxic relationship. And I think a lot of people are. So when it came back, obviously I was immediately relieved in the sense of I can continue to make my content and I don't have to figure out. I mean, that's where I have my biggest following. And
Yeah,
so,
and that's how you're gonna be targeted as a Red Scare anti-Trumper, and you're gonna get sent to jail. And
yeah. So maybe they should have taken it off for that. But I did have to grieve a little bit of the life I started imagining without that huge form of social media.
interesting.
No, I know that's delusional.
No,
Like,
it's not at all. But like, it's also a different source of opportunity, and like recognizing that like you can't grow there is definitely something you'd have to grieve. I feel like the opportunity is different now because in order for TikTok to stay alive, it has to stay in line with Trump's desires, or he's going to ban it in a second. So,
So that's the other grief is, in a sense, TikTok is gone. It will never be the same. The version of it that exists now exists solely at the pleasure of the president, who is famously fickle. And he basically said TikTok only gets to exist at the will of this executive order that he signed. That means the platform has to kiss his ass if they want to remain in business in the United States. And I've already experienced it. There's plenty of other creators who are saying that their content is being censored. Anything critical of Donald Trump is being deprioritized in the algorithm. We're also seeing decreased coverage of Palestine. So it makes me sad because it was this platform that also wasn't controlled by the US tech oligarchy. And now Donald Trump has his foot on their neck. And it was also an unforced error by Democrats. Like, it didn't have to be this way. We did this. We delivered TikTok to Donald Trump. He started the ban process. We bought into that for no good reason. And now we're here.
so I hate to be the one to, break this to you, but it's really giving every election ever. Like, I feel like the Democratic Party is always trying to take things to placate the right, and then the right is still just, they're getting fucked.
Yeah. The Democratic Party is constantly extending goodwill to conservatives that will never, ever, ever be reciprocated. And it
They're
is
bending over.
incredibly frustrating and makes me want to put my head through a wall. And I don't think that they realize how consequential this one was. Like, they just delivered to their enemy a hugely powerful tool of propaganda, and now they're damned if it gets banned because it's their fault and they've pissed off youth voters, and they're damned if it doesn't because it's going to continue to work for this person that is seeking to undermine democracy. So, nice. Big W, Democratic Party.
So really, China wins. You should all be very afraid.
Yeah, also that, especially with everybody getting on red note. So,
What's it called again?
Xiao Hongshu.
Yeah, I was not saying that right this entire week when I was like talking to people about it, and not repeating what I was saying because I don't know what it is.
Smart. That's smart.
Now it's time for What's the Cringe? Cheyenne, what made you cringe this week?
So, the Fraternal Order of Police, which is one of the biggest police unions in the country, just rescinded their endorsement of Donald Trump after he issued over 1,500 pardons for people involved in January 6th. Specifically, they stated that, quote, when perpetrators of crimes are not held fully accountable, it sets a dangerous precedent. First of all, you endorsed him when he was a convicted felon who was avoiding jail time. So, what? Secondly, too little, too late. He does not need your endorsement anymore. He is never running for elected office again. I don't know, unless they successfully do this weird constitutional amendment where he gets to run for a third term. Unlikely. And most importantly, he said the whole time on the campaign trail he was going to do that. What do you mean? You're rescinding your endorsement of him over something he said he was going to do the whole time. So, I don't know. I mean, this man literally ran on getting people out of jail who attacked police officers. And now suddenly you guys are pressed about it. Like, I can't. I'm cringing.
Honestly, the whole time you were talking, I was just thinking about how dumb this is because it's not like they're not going to endorse Trump or whoever the Republican candidate is if they run. So just why?
Also, Lauren Boebert came forward and said she wants to invite all of these now pardoned January 6ers for a tour of the Capitol. I don't think they need a tour. I think they know their way around. So, yeah.
I mean, these are people who are willing to, okay, not all of them wanted to destabilize democracy, but some of them were participants of a coup.
I don't know. What do you mean not all of them? They rushed into the Capitol.
Yes, but some people are literally just followers. Like, I think there is a difference between being a January 6er who came decked out in military gear and like prepared to enact crimes and kidnap people, and the people who are just like, yeah.
Okay, yeah, maybe. That's fair. I don't know. I still feel like at a certain point you have to have enough common sense to realize that you're climbing through a broken window into the United States Capitol.
Common sense? Common sense does not exist. Like, no matter what side of the political aisle you are on. Oh, this is going to be my maybe elitist take of the episode.
Oh, here we go. First one. There will be many.
Not true, but most people aren't smart.
Yeah.
Respectfully, most people are background characters. They have like no storyline.
You sound like Elon right now, that they're NPCs.
I always thought NPC stands for non-player computer.
Non-playable character. Non-player character?
Production. Do you have an answer?
Yeah, it's non-player character.
Non-player character.
Okay. Yeah, but I feel like that doesn't really count because when you play Sims, your woohoo partner is definitely a non-player character. Like, you can't play yourself and them at the same time.
So what does that mean?
I feel like non-player characters and background characters are different because they're a main character in the story if they're woohooing you.
Not necessarily.
I mean, if you played in middle school and you used your crush as the other person, absolutely.
Then they're not an NPC because you designed them.
Yeah, but you don't play as them.
You might.
No,
You could.
you use yourself. Why would you play as them?
How did we go from January 6th to talking about The Sims?
You have to believe that you have to be the main character of your own story.
Storm the Capitol like you mean it, is what Rachel's saying. Don't storm the Capitol if you don't mean it.
Not at all. Just some people will be sheep and they'll just follow.
Whoa, I'm so obsessed with you using all of this right-wing vocabulary right now.
Am I? Bruh, most right-wingers are not main characters.
Like NPC sheep, you're like one step away from QAnon.
Dude, a large percentage of the United States cannot read above a 5th grade level.
Yeah, our education system is awful.
Yes. So we're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have tons of stupid people.
And they stormed the Capitol.
Okay, is someone convinced you that like there were people having sex with kids in a basement of a pizza parlor? Like,
to the listener too, that wasn't just like a random thing she just made up. That is a reference to Pizzagate, which was a conspiracy theory wherein there was allegedly some kind of like deep state coup running a child sex trafficking ring out of the alleged basement of a pizza restaurant. This guy who bought into it online stormed said restaurant with a rifle. There wasn't even a basement in the restaurant. It didn't exist. I think the guy's dead now.
That guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that guy got recently
killed.
So, super predictable ending. Honestly, he's a Pizzagate guy that he would get in a standoff with the police.
if you have, I don't know. I don't even know where, I don't know. Yeah.
January 6th made you realize.
So basically, don't storm the Capitol and don't be a background character.
And if you're gonna storm the Capitol, don't.
Make sure you're a main character because at least then you'll know what you're doing.
Wow.
For real, if you're gonna like subvert the attempt to overthrow the United States of America, I would at least hope you knew what you were participating in. Like, I would rather be completely conscious of that than like wake up and be like, oh my God, I'm in a jail cell just because I was marching. Delusion.
Yeah, marching in the United States Capitol. You climbed through a broken glass window to get in there.
You took a shit on someone's desk and you think that's okay?
Whew, yeah. Well, That's my cringe. What's making you cringe this week, Rachel?
So what made me cringe this week is that the Anti-Defamation League defended Elon Musk's Nazi salute. So the ADL is an organization that was founded to combat anti-Semitism, and they defended Elon's actions. They said he made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm.
Wait. Like, as if you can get excited enough that you accidentally Heil Hitler?
For me, it was more giving involuntary boner, like 7th grade, but you're hailing Hitler instead.
Oh no.
I mean, think about it. An awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm. If that's not a 7th grade involuntary boner, like, what is?
Oh no. Okay.
But he did it twice.
Yeah, so it's not awkward and involuntary if you do it twice in the same event, right?
I don't know. I don't know if my analogy extends that far, because I guess you can get an involuntary boner twice, but not in the span of like 10 seconds.
It's even weirder when you look at Elon's super long history of anti-Semitism that the ADL is giving him this like good faith defense. He doesn't deserve it.
So tell me more about how Elon Musk is a white supremacist.
So yeah, I took notes because this rabbit hole is deep. So not only did he immediately unblock all these Nazis when he bought Twitter, but then he started hanging out with them in the Twitter space. So here's what I got. He made multiple tweets about and in dialogue with some of these posters who catastrophize the US increase in immigration and decline in native births, which is a fear that's central to the super racist Great Replacement theory. In 2022, he retweeted and later deleted a photo of a well-known white supremacist known as Baked Alaska. Sorry, I just can't take that seriously. Yeah, Alaskan native. Who said
Does that mean he's high? Baked Alaska?
Yeah.
I don't know.
These guys are all like middle schoolers, like mentally.
Yeah, mentally like children.
No, I'm not going to do that, because that actually
Infantilizes.
that actually infantilizes them, and they know what they're doing, and they're grown ass people doing it. They just use that to try to excuse their behavior.
Yeah, they act extreme like a circus so that you don't pay attention to the fact that what they're really doing is deeply nefarious.
And by you don't pay attention, she means all you white people. Because literally, I don't know how many times I can tell you these people are white supremacists before you believe me.
So also worth noting on Baked Alaska, he said that he wished Trump was more like Hitler by participating in the race riots in Charlottesville. So that's who Elon is posting pictures of. Also on January 9th, Musk endorsed the AfD party in Germany, which is a far-right nationalist political party with super close ties to white supremacist ideology. The leader of this party has said the following quote, "Burqas, girls in headscarves, knife men on subsidies, and other good-for-nothings will not secure our prosperity, economic growth, and above all, welfare state." So Elon did a Twitter Spaces with her, platforming her. That is who this guy is. And it's also worth noting that these salutes that he didn't just look like Nazi salutes to us woke DEI mob members. They looked like Nazi salutes to literal Nazis. They responded to Elon's salute with all of these different statements. They said, quote, "Incredible things are happening already." That was Andrew Torba, the founder of Gab. "We are fucking back," said the administrator of a Telegram Nazi meme channel. "I don't care if this was a mistake. I'm going to enjoy the tears over it," said Christopher Pohlhaus, the leader of Blood Tribe, the American neo-Nazi group. "Holy crap, did Elon Musk just Heil Hitler at the Trump inauguration rally in Washington, D.C.? This is incredible," said Evan Kilgore, Holocaust denier on Twitter. He then later tweeted, "We are so back." So obviously, this man is a neo-Nazi. He hangs out with them. If it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, it's a Nazi duck.
And after hailing Hitler, he made an anti-Semitic joke on Twitter,
which the ADL then had to chastise him for to cover their ass because they were getting so much hate.
Although, we have to have conversation and not be super buzzkill about this, we do have to be buzzkill about this because this is serious. And as fun as like dunking on the racist, eugenicist, white supremacists is, I would be remiss if I didn't emphasize the gravity of Elon's behavior, especially because it's being normalized every single day, every time we see it more and more. And a lot of this is coming off as absurd, but there's a real underlying malice to all of this. And it's best described by this quote by the philosopher Sartre. Writing in 1944, he said, "Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past." Elon Musk and the red-pilled beta male dickheads like him use the audacity of their words and actions to turn the public square into a spectacle, a circus where they can shroud their hatred in 4chan memes and edgy message boards, because it is those that consume and respond that carry the burden of disentangling fact from farce. In reality, there's no deception at all. It's who they are. And we would be fools not to take them at their word. If we, as a society, continue to normalize their vitriol while sending messages of solidarity to those in the shadows, one day we'll have to face these ideas in the light. And we're seeing that now.
So it's heavy, but I think one of the things we wanted to do with this podcast and why we were passionate about doing it now is because there is power in shining a light on darkness and exposing things, calling them out, not letting them be normalized. And sometimes that means really doing the uncomfortable work of acknowledging when cycles of violence are repeating themselves and we're not necessarily noticing it because the perpetrator has a clown nose on. So I appreciate you calling that out. And because now we've done that work, we can move on and talk about the vibes.
What's your pop culture vibe this week?
I know it's a rough transition, but my vibe this week is The Substance. It's award season. The Substance has been nominated for Best Picture, Director, Writer, and Actress. And I'm going to be so honest right now, horror is like not my thing, but this particular movie I have to give props to. It's an angry as fuck feminist body horror film that's been nominated for all of these incredible high honors, which is super abnormal. And we're talking about a film that is eviscerating, sometimes literally, the hypercritical lens that we apply as a society to women and their bodies. And we commodify them and we chastise them for aging. And this role is played beautifully by Demi Moore. And she's been super vocal in her own life about her struggles with aging in Hollywood and the way that she just feels so objectified. And this is just super exciting to see a piece of art like this honored in this way. It rarely ever happens. There's a lot of conversation every award season about how female directors always go underappreciated. And this is just the pinnacle, I think, of feminist, angry artistry getting the love that it deserves. And also, shout out to the people who are complimenting Demi Moore and the cast of this movie for the way that they look and Demi for aging so well, because you totally missed the point.
Speaking of movies, Jockstrap Baldoni, never forget. We're still here, y'all. And this week on just self-sabotage, conducted by Justin Baldoni. His lawyer released a video that was previously unseen where you watch him sexually harass Blake Lively in real time.
Dude, I, for the life of me, could not comprehend why in God's name he would release that.
Why he thinks that
He's kissing her unscripted. She's clearly uncomfortable.
he's like, I smell you smell so good.
Yeah, like she's clearly like trying to skirt this. He's all up in her neck. Also, any woman who has ever been in an uncomfortable situation, especially with a man who's in a position of power over her, that's trying to navigate that. And you know that giggle that you get when you're nervous and you're trying to figure out how you're going to navigate this? They're trying to say that that giggle is what proves that she wanted it, which is honestly disgusting.
So this seems to be a reoccurring theme with these delusional male celebrities because Diddy's attorneys tried to do the same thing with the sex tapes that they're requesting from the government. They're claiming that somehow these videos show consent. It's just so disgusting and bizarre to me. But for an attorney to degrade themselves enough to put this video into the public
Bruh, I've been saying that.
is,
Yeah,
it should be sanctionable.
I said that last week
Because-
and you were not so sure about it.
It's no. Hold on. Last week, there was no evidence being released to the general public. Like, everybody had the text messages. The text messages that they filed in the complaint, a complaint is open to the general public.
Yeah,
Evidence is not open to the general public.
yeah.
So,
And that's why Blake Lively's lawyers are making this motion for sanctions now, because they're bringing that by releasing this video, essentially they're not waiting for trial in court. They're trying to have trial by the public.
but also by publishing that video, he's forcing her to like relive her sexual harassment over and over and over again.
In a super public way.
Yes, and that's disgusting. But I think that's also why the government won't release the videos to Diddy.
Yeah,
Because he would put them in the media, and that's traumatic.
and it's
It's revenge porn.
it's not
This is
okay.
actually giving revenge porn in like a,
Revenge softcore porn.
yes.
Yeah.
And to top all of this off, Justin's team, Jockstrap's team, is still conducting their smear campaign with the bots.
The worst part to me is you guys are still buying it. If you look at the coverage of this on the internet, it is so overwhelmingly his side when anybody who's actually an attorney, anyone who's read the complaints and reviewed the evidence will tell you that he is screwed in court. Like, absolutely. His case is awful. And yet there's all of this tabloid coverage, all of this like 2-bit influencer coverage pumping him up and tearing down Blake Lively. It's so obvious that he is still manipulating the discourse and you guys are following it. Like, please have an ounce of information literacy.
And please use lube because y'all are literally not aware that he's about to get fucked with no lube.
Dog,
Okay?
your mom's gonna hate that.
Well, you can just cut my part out.
No, it's staying.
Yeah, that's totally staying in. Anyway, that's a mess. And those are the vibes.
The vibe is the world is a mess.
Yeah.
Politically, pop culturally.
Please have information literacy. That's the vibe.
I would just say read a book. You can start there. Smut counts.
Stop.
Clearly, the vibe is messy. And with that, it's time for the deep dive.
Let's dive in. We're going to talk about Donald Trump's executive orders, and it's a lot.
It's messy, like I said.
Yeah, that's the vibe of this whole episode is messy. Rachel had the wonderful idea of starting this segment with an overview of what exactly an executive order is and how it functions. Rachel?
So remember, there's 3 branches of government. The legislative branch, that's Congress. The judicial branch,
The
that's
courts.
the courts. And then the executive branch, that's the president. An executive order is an order by the president that isn't legislation. It requires no approval from Congress, and Congress can't just overturn them. The ability to issue an executive order is derived from Article 2 of the Constitution, which gives the president broad executive powers. That means that the president has control over White House staff, the military, and federal agencies. So, using executive orders, he can basically tell the federal government what to do. Now, this power is not limitless, okay? The president's executive orders have to adhere to existing law, whether that be the Constitution, acts passed by Congress, or Supreme Court decisions. Speaking of Supreme Court decisions, executive orders do not have the power to change the Constitution.
That's going to become relevant when we start talking about these executive orders. Yeah, he does have the power to interpret laws and decide how they're going to get enforced by the federal government, but he cannot overrule and change them unilaterally.
So, day one of the shit show, Trump issues a ton of executive orders.
Yeah, I think it was like 26 on the first day. At this point, he's issued so many that I can't even find a publication that's been able to keep count. That's abnormal. And also worth noting, for a really long time, conservatives have complained, whether it be conservative judges or conservatives in Congress, that the use of executive orders is contrary to the principles of the Constitution and that it's a presidential and executive overreach, and they get all up in arms about it. But as soon as Donald Trump comes in, it's fine. So just wanted to note the hypocrisy.
First up on the Articles of Terror, we have the gender order.
We're calling them the Articles of Terror.
Correct.
Okay, noted. On board. Now that we've got the branding, we're going to be consistent. I like it. So the gender order is one of my favorites because it means nothing and it's silly. Essentially, it claims that it is the policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female, and that those genders are determined by your chromosomes at the time of conception, which is hilarious because at conception, we all only have two X chromosomes, making us all female. It is only after 5 or 6 weeks of gestation that you develop, if you're going to be male, a Y chromosome.
So basically what Trump is saying is you're all bitches.
He's saying in this executive order,
You're all my bitch.
that we're all female, but sure.
Yeah, but he doesn't respect women.
No, I know. So none of us are respected.
No, so we're all his bitches.
I'm here. All right. Okay, how about the second article of terror?
Trump ended all federal work from home programs. He also froze the ability for programs to communicate outside of their agency. So all of the contracts between Health and Human Services are now on pause.
This reminds me of what you talked about in our episode about Project 2025, which is their intent to basically just cripple the functioning of the federal government from within. So not only now is like their ability to recruit high quality workers going to go down because no one wants to move across the country and work full time in DC, Maryland, Virginia, but they are also now basically making it impossible to do the business of government because you can't communicate.
Yeah, but they're also facing waves of retirement.
Yeah. And you're not going to replace those people with high quality folks that want to do this job and comply with all of that red tape. Why would they?
What about the next article of terror?
Okay, number 3, I want to talk a little bit more about. I feel like it's pretty intense and the mainstream media is not giving it the kind of attention it deserves. Trump issued an order declaring the Mexican cartels terrorist organizations, which on the surface doesn't sound that outlandish, but when you look at it from a legal perspective and a human rights perspective, things get dark pretty fast. So this opens up legal pathways that were created during the Bush era war on terror. Think the Patriot Act, that allow the use of the military to enforce the southern border, which is almost certainly going to be extended to his mass deportation campaign. It's going to become very easy for him to label basically any Hispanic people as suspected cartel members and to use the military against them. This order also authorizes indefinite detention without trial, aka what's been going on at Guantanamo Bay for years that everybody has been raising human rights alarm bells about. So, specifically because of the Patriot Act, they're going to use this legally to detain anyone that is a non-US citizen suspected of engaging in or aiding and abetting terrorist activity, which means the cartels. In effect, that means basically if you are undocumented, they can say that you're a terrorist and detain you for an indefinite period of time without charging you with a crime.
And don't worry, China is not going to be the only country stealing your data, because this act allows the federal government to conduct incredibly invasive surveillance.
Yeah, that's the other thing about the Patriot Act is this will open up all of these windows to weaponize the surveillance tactics of the federal government against probably, honestly, all of us in the extreme. Also worth noting, this could open the door for the United States to invade Mexico. Let's talk about how. Basically, under the unwilling and unable doctrine, this allows state actors to use force in what they're claiming as defense against non-state actors residing in another state without that other state's permission. So in English and non-legalese, they could go into Mexico under the auspices of eliminating the cartel with the entire force and might of the United States military without Mexico's permission.
So are they really mad at the Mexican cartel because they can't control them and the United States wants to control the legal and illegal drug industry?
I think it has almost nothing to do with the cartel and everything to do with Donald Trump's desire to use every resource within the federal government against undocumented immigrants or anyone that he thinks is an undocumented immigrant.
Yes, but undocumented immigrants don't just come from Mexico.
But I think those are the ones that he is particularly targeting. That's his brand of racism that he's decided on.
Speaking of brand of racism and targeting what he perceives as Mexicans, Trump's next article of terror attempted to revoke what we all fondly refer to as the 14th Amendment. He tried to get rid of birthright citizenship, when the 14th Amendment guarantees that if you are born on United States soil or territory, you are an American citizen.
And it's worth remembering back to our conversation about executive orders, what they can do and what their limitations are, that unilaterally altering the Constitution is not one of those powers. And as a result, this has already been challenged and stopped in court.
Yes, a federal judge in Seattle granted a temporary restraining order blocking the Trump administration from being able to take steps to carry out the executive order.
Yeah, and there's going to be a hearing on a longer term stoppage of this while it inevitably works its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, which is such a waste of time and energy. I also want to say they know that. Like he has people working for him who are not stupid. Some of them are actually incredibly and like nefariously conniving and intelligent. And they know that this isn't going to work. But what it does do is it gets everyone looking at the circus over here of him trying to mess with the Constitution. And we're not paying attention to the order before this, where he's using the power of the United States military and the federal government to surveil and attack anyone that they deem as seeming like they might be potentially undocumented and they can say is connected to the cartel. That is really what's going on. This is the distraction.
There's a coordinated attack because he also declared a state of emergency at the southern border. And in order to facilitate violating people's constitutional rights and, frankly, violating their human rights, it's easier to do when you suspend law
Yeah,
through a
which
state of emergency.
states of emergency plus designations of terror are similar in that they grant the president exceptional powers, more power than they have as they would usually. So this is a coordinated and intentional effort. I also just think the birthright citizenship thing isn't really part of that. It's like the smoke bomb so that they can do all this other chicanery in the shadows.
Well, speaking of marginalizing people, Trump said, don't forget, I still hate the blacks. And he repealed the Equal Opportunity Employment Executive Order of 1965. So this order prohibited discrimination in federal government hiring and employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin.
It's crazy that he revoked this. Like this, I'm pretty sure was enacted by Lyndon B. Johnson, and he could have revoked it in his first administration, but he wasn't that extreme then. He is now. He's genuinely willing to burn it all down and say, yes, the federal government can discriminate based on race, sex, gender, whatever. That's insane.
So basically, when they overrule the constitutional protections allowing interracial marriage, just remember that Clarence Thomas is black and his wife is white.
They won't do that until like the day after he dies.
Dude, no. They'll do it now because Trump and all of his friends consider themselves above the law.
Yeah.
So they don't think they're subject to these things, which is why he has his token Hispanic Americans like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz.
Well, Ted doesn't like to admit that he's Hispanic.
He does when he's visiting Mexico during the snowstorms.
Speaking of totalitarianism constantly eating its own, after the gender order, did you see Caitlyn Jenner tweeted like in solidarity with Trump? And it was like, he literally just signed an executive order that you don't exist.
No, because Caitlyn Jenner doesn't see themselves as someone who this law applies to either.
I know, but it's crazy. Like it's the delusion, the layers of delusion that they're not, that leopard is gonna eat your face. Like it will.
The theme of this episode is that first they came for someone else, but then they come for you, and no one's going to be there to speak up.
Okay. Next executive order. We have the January 6th pardons. We referenced this a little bit earlier in the episode, but let's get into how crazy this actually is. Approximately 1,500 January 6ers were pardoned of their federal crimes. Some of these are really serious crimes, like sedition and attempts to overthrow the government. Literally, some of them went straight from prison onto right-wing media platforms like Alex Jones and are making explicit calls for violent revolution and revenge. Enrique Tarrio, the Proud Boys leader, went on Alex Jones straight out of jail and said, quote, "It's going to be time for retribution."
Pause. Enrique?
Also, hot take, I guess, after watching Enrique Tarrio, Alex Jones is looking pretty good right now. I don't know if it's bankruptcy or Ozempic. I'm guessing it's Ozempic and probably not taking as many steroids. But I don't know if you've seen him recently. He just looks a little bit less like he might disintegrate into like Voldemort, like nothingness if someone sneezes on him. So yeah, I don't know, but that's my hot take. Alex Jones looking better?
Speaking of Alex Jones, Trump also declassified the JFK, RFK, and MLK assassination records.
Why is that speaking of Alex Jones?
Because there's so many JFK conspiracy theories. Like, bruh, 100% speaking of Alex Jones, the king of conspiracy theories.
Okay, got it. The through line was not clear for me, but I'm on board with you now.
We're here for everyone else.
Yeah, we're here.
He didn't declassify Epstein, what we all want to know about.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure that was intentional.
I don't know why he decided to tell the world that the American government assassinated John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King like we didn't know.
Well, I'm sure that that is not the information that he will release. He did this before. People forget that he did this before. He signed declassification documents on JFK during his last administration, and it basically just took like 3 words out of redaction while the rest of the document was blacked out. He's not going to declassify all of it. There's no way. This is another thing where it's like people will be stoked and be like, he's draining the swamp, he's bringing the truth, and like it's nothing. It's a nothing burger. It's meaningless. We're not gonna learn anything else. There's no way.
Speaking of nothing burgers, Donald Trump has banned U.S. government officials from pushing social media companies to combat misinformation and disinformation.
The other order that speaking of social media, he also signed, which we all know, a 75-day pause on the ban for TikTok, which means that the Attorney General is currently stopped from enforcing this TikTok ban that is still the law of the land. But that also means that TikTok only continues to operate in the United States so long as they have the approval of Donald Trump. And it means that platform is basically stuck kissing his ass.
So when I think about this practically, only the president has the ability to enforce the law. So what does enforcement even look like? It would be the federal government suing TikTok.
No. So the enforcement of this law is that the app stores that keep TikTok and the servers domestically that house the data and operate the app would be subject to liability. It's like huge fines every day.
It's a good thing money is a social construct and there's an unlimited amount of it. How's it doing, guys? We're cutting that out.
Yeah.
Money's important. Remember, I'm the elitist. Article of Terror number 756. Trump rescinded a 2022 order from Joe Biden to lower the prescription drug costs. So he canceled the $35 a month insulin cap, meaning that prices will go back to approximately $1,500 a month, which is more than most people's rent.
I genuinely don't understand how his supporters and how the people who voted for him on the auspice of he's going to lower prices are going to square that.
Well, don't you remember? He passed an order mandating that prices come down for consumers.
My favorite part about that is the only kind of government that has the authority to order consumer good prices to come down would be a communist one. So either Donald Trump's a communist or he knows that what he just signed is a nothing burger.
And speaking of the United States and nothing burger, we can wrap this segment up by talking about how we don't come through on our international agreements either. Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, which committed nations to pursue policies limiting carbon emissions that cause climate change.
Yeah, also in like the most American twist of fate ever, I saw this morning that he obviously pulled us out of the agreement, which also means he pulled out all of our funding for the Paris climate enforcement and for all of those climate efforts. And it's coming down to American billionaire Michael Bloomberg, who's going to cover all of that funding that the US government has pulled out. So yet again, emphasizing that we have a massive problem with oligarchy. Don't worry, if our government doesn't come through, maybe you'll be lucky enough to be supported by the whims of one of our billionaires. Also worth noting, Trump issued an order that would pause all of the funds that were allocated by Congress for infrastructure and energy projects. So this is super ironic to me because during the end of his last administration, one of the things that they did to try and make it look like they were actually governing was they called like every other week Infrastructure Week. And he was supposed to be touring the country and looking at the infrastructure and all of the things that were broken and needed to be repaired and how he was going to work with Congress to get it done. And now that Biden had all of this funding allocated from his bipartisan infrastructure bill, he got into office and said, actually, we're not going to spend any of that money. And a big part of it is because he was just told they don't have anywhere near enough money to do all of his mass deportation shit. It's going to cost so much money, especially because they're going to be detaining a ton of these people. So all of that money that would have gone to improving the country, our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, create federal jobs, instead, we're going to use that to send ICE to elementary schools.
Can he pause the dispersal order?
Yep, he sure can.
But that's congressionally mandated.
The funding is, but spending the funding is, this is actually really interesting, like where I geek out about this when it comes to administrative law. The way that the funding is dispersed is through the federal government, which the president has power over.
Well, next time you run over a pothole, remember,
Thanks,
Donald Trump.
Thanks, Donald Trump, for that. I think we should say before we move on, a lot of these will be challenged in court, but the damage can also be done by the fact that they were signed in the first place. It normalizes these ideas. It makes people think that those are things that are legal, that should be normal, that should be happening. And we have degraded as a government and a democracy because they exist. I also want to say too, because I forgot to mention this, watching him sign these things was super reminiscent of like the worst of the end of Biden. And it very much reminded me that Donald Trump is, in fact, 78 years old. He looks super confused. The reporters are asking him what he's signing, and he has no idea. He has to turn and look to his aides before they like come up and they're like, oh, actually, sir, that one says reading makes you gay. Like, he has no idea what's going on. He looks at the reporter. He's like, huh, yeah, all right, and signs it. So it was rough. And I also want to see the commentary of all the people who were pissed about Biden being too old to serve. It's so obvious. It's like right in front of us that he has no idea what's going on. He's being puppeteered by his right-wing Project 2025 acolytes. So, yeah, it's dark days ahead with the Trump administration, but we will have plenty to talk about here. And with that, let's talk about rent-free. Rachel, what's been living in your head rent-free this week?
Well, the Nazis, of course, but this time they're black.
Oh.
So I don't know if you heard about the school shooting in Tennessee. I mean, that's kind of vague. We know there's so many. But recently, a school shooting was conducted in Tennessee by an individual claiming to be a black Nazi who was inspired by Candace Owens. So there's that. And I'm not giving any more airtime to this foolishness, but Google it.
I do think that goes to the point that we've touched on in previous episodes, which is this idea that most people find really outlandish, that there can be white supremacists who exist. They're not white. And this is that like to the extreme.
Also, what black people do school shootings? What the fuck? Like, bro, come on. You want to be white so bad you shoot up a school? That's crazy.
See? Oh, God.
Bruh, I'm serious.
That was a banger. I could tell it was building. I was like, oh, it's going. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to say I'm not going to co-sign on any of that. You can just leave that out there. And
wait, what? You're not co-signing?
No.
How are you not co-signing?
That's not my business.
Bruh, you have to co-sign it.
I'm not. My run free this week is that Melania Trump showed up at the inauguration, I think, or maybe I just took too much Benadryl. I don't really know. But if you're familiar with the side of Reddit where they talk about taking so much Benadryl that you see the Hat Man, that is what Melania looked like. And I am hoping that in editing, we're going to have a photo of Hat Man for you that you can look at and maybe a comparison to Melania so you can really soak this in. Because I'm telling you, she looked just like the Hat Man of your nightmares.
I disagree. It was a protection visor so that Trump couldn't kiss her, okay? It perfectly maintained a 3-inch distance.
She was social distancing.
No matter how close he got, his funky breath was not going to permeate her safe space.
And no orange makeup on that face. They're going to have to arrest her. She's in with Fauci. She's social distancing. In all seriousness, though, I do want to talk briefly about this idea of soft power. I think Melania is becoming the soft power source for the Trump administration.
You mean soft porn?
Nope, I do not. Soft power is different from hard political power. Hard political power is coercive force. Think about military. Think about revoking funding and aid that a country's economy relies upon.
So hardcore porn.
Soft power is cultural influence. It's persuasion. It's making things cool. And by them putting Melania in this like crazy high fashion they know everybody's going to talk about And it worked. Kim Kardashian's posting her on her story. And now they've got the Melania documentary on Amazon Prime. This is them making a play to make her likable so that they have a soft power asset, especially with women, to soften all of the nonsense that Donald Trump is going to do. Don't fall for it.
That's your like politically educated, like highbrow take. I think Melania has always been fashionable. The only thing they're trying to use her for is softcore porn. God bless.
God, this was Baddies for the People. That's our take for this week. I want to give a shout out to our producers in the room. We've got Alex Hashimoto and Jarrett Williams helping us bring this show to you this week. And we'll catch you next week, Baddies.
See you later.